R&B singer Cassie Ventura expected to return to the stand tomorrow in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial.
And today she was questioned by the defense, who focused on Diddy's alleged drug use. Cassie testified that Diddy overdosed in 2012 and described the various drugs that they took during their relationship. The defense has been trying to portray her as a willing participant in Diddy's sexual lifestyle. The judge said both sides will have up to 5 hours to question her tomorrow. And for more perspective on today's dramatic testimony, let's bring in former Manhattan prosecutor Jeremy Saland. Jeremy, thank you for joining us. So today we saw the defense cross-examining Cassie, and they had to read some explicit text messages she sent Diddy. Do you think that was a good idea?
Well, you have to confront her and you have to challenge her, because otherwise she's up there as the much older, motherly, about to have a child Cassie Ventura, as opposed to the one who had sort of stars in her eyes and a record deal and living that life. And you want to portray her as a willing participant, consent as opposed to coercion, as opposed to force, as opposed to violence, that she was an active participant. And you know that she was, for example, jealous of Kim Porter and this woman Gina, and confronting about, statements of love, things along those lines. You had to come at her to challenge her credibility.
Yeah, Cassie is the star witness for the prosecution. How do you think her testimony has helped their case so far? It seems like Diddy's defense is basically, yeah, we did this wild sex stuff. She was a willing participant, and it doesn't rise to the level of the crimes I've been charged with anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if they hammered many holes in her, because this isn't 1980 or 1950 where you say, well, the woman came back and therefore she must have loved him. There's going to be an expert who's going to explain the psychological impact of domestic abuse and why she returned. So what may appear to be love and what may appear to be consent is not really the situation. And, just because you love someone at time A does not necessarily mean you're consenting and pull that back at time B. That being said, guys, it's still a tough charge. Is this more of a state prosecution for domestic violence? We've seen a lot of it. Or is it a conspiracy for RICO? That's a big lift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in that same vein, tomorrow's going to wrap up the first week of the trial. And so if they're trying to make it look like it was a relationship that both of them were willing to participate in, what do you make of Diddy's defense team then acknowledging in their opening statement that Cassie was beaten savagely by Diddy?
As frightening as it sounds, the simple one. You don't like my client. He's not a great guy. He's done some really bad things, and maybe he should be accountable for those bad things. He's a domestic abuser even. Don't date my sister or my cousin, but that's what he is. He did not commit sex trafficking. He did not commit conspiracy to commit RICO. He is not the things that they are saying. Parse him out. Bad guy doesn't mean he's guilty of these crimes in particular.
Yeah, and you touched on it earlier, but just in conclusion, talk about the specter of her being this visibly pregnant, could give birth any day. How does that play with jurors? We heard some of them gasping when they saw some of the images in the courtroom.
Just her appearance is powerful. If you recall, I think it may have been yesterday, the defense asked to have her seated and not when the jury came in, as opposed to having her walk in and they can see this pregnant woman who's about to give birth on the stand. So, they want to have this choreographed in terms of the prosecution. The defense needs to minimize that. And in part, they handle her with kid gloves. But this is not Cassie today we're talking about. This is Cassie 19, 20, 21, 22 and on.
Yeah, a fine line for them to try to straddle for sure.
It's not easy. It is not easy.
All right, Jeremy, thank you so much.
My pleasure, guys.
And the Los